All right, so y'all probably wondering. Well, I ain't gonna say y'all probably wondered, but it occurred to me that there should be a little bit more, um, I guess, elaborated on when it comes to the lies that like ignorant black men say or tell. And so I don't know if what I'm exactly about to say is necessarily a lie per se, but it is a point of contention in my opinion, and it has to do with Oh, okay, sorry. So I think it was on here, or maybe it was a video I made somewhere else about the perpetual victimhood of black men. And what I referred to in the last video as far as why a lot of black women have pretty much been forced or, like socialized into holding black men down through thick or thin or whatever is because of, pretty much us being perpetual victims of white supremacy, the system, racism, whatever you want to call it. Which everything I'm about to say is not to say that we're not still victims or still dealing with the negative effects of those systems that I mentioned, but it's more so like saying that at this point we're dragging it, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, okay, so what's on my mind to try and articulate is the fact that we want to be, I don't say we want to be, but at this point in time, it's almost like we want to be. We perpetuate that we're always victims of the system. Not all of us, but a lot of us do. Um, but we perpetuate that we're victims of the system of, white supremacy, victims of the justice system, because we're, targeted to become statistics that are part of the justice system, i.e. like prison and stuff like that, and other aspects of, our government or whatever. And we normally lean on that to say that we are in fact like victims, or at least the targets, the primary targets of white supremacy in America, which I'm not going to say that's 100% true. I'm not going to say that's 100% false, because there is some validity to the overall notion of that. But what I'm going to point to you is the amount of black men, and this is actually something that a lot of men buy into, but really the amount of black men, especially those that claim to be like alpha men and others that subscribe to like the whole manosphere red pill notion or whatever. Uh, Excuse me, the ones that talk about us being like conquerors or hunters and stuff like that. And I've talked about it before, as far as how we as men choose to identify. One of the things that we have to fix ourselves as men is the fact that the things that we use to identify ourselves, the things that we align ourselves with, i.e. being a hunter or a conqueror, is synonymous with being a predator as well. And a predator in the nature, in, the natural kingdom, or in, I forgot this, is some, the animal kingdom, is it's understood. It's one thing, it's okay. On the other hand, when it comes to the world of humans, due to the fact that many of us have ulterior motives, and oftentimes those ulterior motives dictate or influence why we deal with certain people the way that we deal with them, it takes on a whole new, different, insidious meaning, if that makes sense. So, what's on my mind to try and articulate is the fact that despite, us always trying to lean on this narrative that, the white man or the white system, or sorry, white supremacy, or the racist system took us out the home and made us, targeted us and debilitated us as black men. For some reason, we still want to hold on to the notion of us being leaders, kings, which, you know me, I hate that word king anyways, which is why I don't allow anybody to call me that shit. Conquerors and stuff like that. And a lot of times these titles are co-opted or, taken on by the manosphere dudes, the ones that like to listen to all this extra BS rhetoric or whatever. And it creates an interesting dichotomy, right? Because on the one hand, within the confines of the community, you want to say that, you're a high value male, you're a conqueror, you're a king, you're a hunter, and that's how you choose to navigate women. But on the other hand, you still also buy into the notion that we as black men are specifically the targeted victims of white supremacy, which, again, as I said, it's an interesting dichotomy because we want to be victims when it comes to dealing with black women, but when it comes to sorry, we want to be conquerors when it comes to like women and dealing with black women, but when it comes to white supremacy, we are victims. Which again, everything I'm saying is not to say that we're not still victims, but it's interesting to me how we like to switch up the dynamic and utilize it to our advantage against people that are, truth be told, that are more disenfranchised than us, i.e., black women. Um, there was something else within the confines of this that I wanted to get to, and I'm trying to put my finger back on it. Okay. So specifically when it gets to lying, though, lying by ignorant black men. Let me see. I don't want to word this. We need to perpetuate the narrative that black women have left us, or are disloyal or have turned their backs on us in order to go after white men or non-black men or whatever. And we perpetuate that so we can, I'm gonna say it like this, so we can further stew in our victimhood, right? Because as I've said before, anything that does not placate or give credence or give space or centers us as victims, and not only does not center us as victims, but also identifies us as the victimizers in the equation, we're going to deflect, we're going to negate, we're going to try to avoid that type of accountability. And as I've been telling us as men for years now, one of the top forms of accountability is when you can look within yourself and figure out and point out what you've done wrong as a person or as an entity, which is not something that I actually see being done with these male podcasts, because anytime they allegedly try to take accountability, it's normally in a passive aggressive way so that they can still blame women for it. What I mean is, like, say, for instance, a dude has been a deadbeat and, well, maybe not, because I don't know how many dudes are going to admit they're a deadbeat. They're not going to come out and say it out loud, most likely. Say, for instance, a dude got his car keyed, right, by a woman he used to date, right? And say, for instance, she had exhibited signs of being crazy or unstable or whatever you want to call it. And, this is a similar situation. A dude will come through and say, okay, well, yeah, it was my fault for dating her because she's crazy or something like that. And, trying to take quote unquote accountability, but still tossing or throwing some of that blame onto the woman. Not really being responsible, I guess, for the decisions he made in that equation. I probably could have thought of a better example, which I might do that like later on, because I feel like I've thought of better examples before. But the point that I'm trying to make is we rarely, if ever, take actual accountability outside of with the shit we do when we're trying to be passive aggressively, blame women as well. Which is how I know a lot of these dudes don't really be about accountability. They're more so be about like blame and stuff like that, because they'll be like, okay, yeah, I did this, but what about such and such? Or what about her? Or what about the women that are having, sex with these dudes or whatever? We always end up pushing the narrative that further perpetuates our victimhood as black men, because we have been victimized by the system. And as a result, whenever black women talk about things that we as black men have done to victimize them, we all of a sudden want to deflect and detract away from what they're talking about and recenter and repaint ourselves as the victim. So we perpetuate the lie or the misconception that black women have turned their backs on us as a way to try and garner more sympathy for, the black women that are not hip to the game, for the non-black women that might be listening in on the conversation, and basically for the world to see. That's why I really think that the world has a skewed view of black women because of the rhetoric that many black men have put out about black women. So like, yes, there's media about black women that is like, that you can say is like derogatory, whatever. That's cool, whatever. It's not cool. I'm sorry I said that. That's understood. But at the same time, there's been a lot of negative rhetoric put out about black women over the decades. And as I said it before, due to religious indoctrination and stuff like that. So, yeah, the reason I think that is a part of the lie that not even ignorant black men say or tell. It's just trying to perpetuate us always being the victim. And we're so willing to be the victim at large that we're willing to try and throw our own women under the bus or to detract away from their narrative if it paints us as the victimizers in that equation.